Morning, everybody. It's great to see some old friends and the usual criminals who have been involved with HIBALL for the last 6 or 7 years. You're going to see that Crystal and I are a well-oiled machine when I show you the same slides that Crystal just showed. So yes, I'm the scientific director of Healthy Brains, Healthy Lives. It means I have all the responsibility and no authority. The HIBALL has been around as an international initiative that is funded by Healthy Brains for Healthy Lives. So I'll be talking a little bit more about that as we go forward. I want to thank the local organizing committee, in particular, Maurizio Corberto, Alessandro Salvaggio, Lorenzo Pini, and Alessandro Bertoldo, for all the work that they've done in providing a fantastic venue for us here. Michele Allegra is also speaking in the special session on Neuro AI. And the HBHL Training Day, I want to particularly acknowledge Kim Reeve for all the hard work that she's done. She's the program officer for the HBHL, and she's put an awful lot of effort into organizing this meeting with the usual support and critical input from Paul-Johan Toussaint and Susanna Wenzel from HIBALL. We have an HBHL training committee, and as you can see, that lots of various training components to HBHL, graduate and postdoctoral fellowships, professional development programs, a whole research day, which is not today. Today is a training day. There's quite a separate research day where all of their work is presented, HBHL training committee, and trainee get-togethers. So there's a very active program of trainee upgrade. Today's training day, in the middle you have what's on the website, and it's completely illegible. So I thought I would just break out and say we have an educational lecture from a world authority on neuroinformatics and the Allen Brain Institute, Michael Horowitz. We'll get into that a little later. Michele Allegra, I've already mentioned, this special session on Neuro AI. 6 hands-on sessions, as you can see up there. A lot of various components, whether it's indirect disconnection methods, the single-cell ecosystem from the Allen. Let me have the brain freezer morphologist work at sulcal morphometry from Jean-Francois Mangin. C-Brain, the big brain data processing from our group, Brian Caron. And then we have the Big Mac data set from the Allen Brain Institute, Rachel Hostetler. And then the Zebra Python workflow for multi-scale brain organization from the Ulish group. And I'm hoping that Jane Roskams will join us to lead a panel discussion on integrating AI approaches for brain modeling. So it's a full-on program. Yes, you saw this from Crystal, but it's worthwhile repeating. We spent the last 7 years, Crystal and I, struggling with this 3-ring circus, and it goes on today. So over 240 funded PIs, and keeping all of them equally unhappy is a challenge in its own right. We have over 1,000 HQP involved in this program. As you can see, it's quite a challenge. We've hired, at this point, 28 new data science faculty. That goes alongside approximately the same number who are there already. So there's an endowment of somewhere between 50 and 60 neuro data scientists now at McGill. And they support 4 programs within HBHL. The horizontal informatics and computational modeling platform and horizontal theme, as you can see, is a heavy emphasis on connectionist models of brain function and breakdown in brain disorders. And then we have 3 application themes built on top of that horizontal platform. Mechanistic models of neurodegeneration, particularly Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. We have applied cognitive neuroscience of brain plasticity and studies of sleep and consciousness and social determinants of mental health in general. And then we have a population neuroscience and brain health, which is essentially psychiatric disorders and disorders of society, like stress. The whole enterprise is supported by 10 core facilities, and as you can see here, these support data acquisition in animals as well as humans. the most all-encompassing component is NeuroHub, since that has to allow us to capture all of this information and organize it for 240 PIs. I will be talking to a much greater extent about all of this in a talk tomorrow, but just briefly, that environment allows us, for instance, to serve to our user community the entirety of the UK Biobank. We can have a long discussion about changes within the UK Biobank structure, where they are now going to make everybody go through a central breakpoint, choke point at DNA Nexus. But we've built an environment already for dissemination of any subset of the UK Biobank to the HBHL community already. This is linked to CBrain, which is a portal to the high-performance computing infrastructure, originally in Canada, but now incorporating HPC sites in the US, the Exceed sites, as well as in Europe, and links to eBrains, which you'll hear more about again during this session, the European infrastructure, which is a major legacy of the Human Brain Project, as well as sites in the Netherlands. CBrain supports over 120 tools, and again, I won't go into any great detail except to say there are about 120 packages which are available to the HBHL user community, including more latterly genomics and transcriptomics, which I think is of relevance to the kinds of talks you'll hear from microwallets later on today. The research output, at this point, it's closer to 2,000 publications, which have arisen from Healthy Brains for Healthy Lives. And Crystal mentioned this again, the HIBALL is probably the most salient example of international cooperation between HBHL and the Helmholtz Association here, with Katrin Almans and myself as PIs of the HIBALL initiative. And HIBALL is essentially focused on the applications of machine learning in general and AI to neuroscience. There are 6 work packages. We'll get into all of these details tomorrow. Today is not the time to go into any great depth about HIBALL. Suffice it to say, it's another very large program that you'll hear about in much greater detail tomorrow. It's built originally on the work that we did together to create the BigBrain dataset. I hope you saw the picture outside of the BigBrain projected onto the floor. I thought that was a nice touch. Again, we'll talk about this in much greater detail tomorrow. The other international initiative, I think, has taken place in the last year, which increasingly worth mentioning, is the rise of the Global Brain Consortium. Celebrating 100 years of EEG is the theme of this year's annual meeting. And it was just held pretty much at the same time as today's conference. I was involved in that remotely. Pedro Valdez Sosa, my partner in crime within the Global Brain Consortium that we co-direct, he was here at the HIBALL meeting last year, but he has to be there and I have to be here. We had to split duties. The Global Brain Consortium, what is it? It's an organization that emphasizes democratization of brain mapping practices into low and middle income countries, with an initial emphasis on EEG, since that's inexpensive and has high temporal resolution. So it's something that low and middle income countries can immediately get into and adopt, and there are some unique scientific advantages to EEG data, particularly the high temporal resolution. So the thrust of the GBC is to increase access for LMICs to neuroelectrophysiology, data, tools, methods, and infrastructure, collaborative neuroscience, best practices for international open science, applications for disease disorder discovery, and equitable global mental health. The Global Brain Consortium Steering Committee has myself and Pedro as co-directors, but Katrin Almans, co-directing HIBALL, is very much part of the leadership group. Last year we had Marianne Martone here at HIBALL, Paolo Rossini from the International Federation for Clinical Neurophysiology, Jane Roskins, ex-Allen Brain Institute and at UBC. Paul Thompson was at HIBALL last year in Reykjavik talking about the Enigma workshop. Oops, excuse me. Dejong Yao in Chengdu is a colleague of Pedro's. Mike Milham at the Child Mind Institute. He was part of the steering committee, and we're working very closely with Mike Milham to develop an interface between their IT infrastructure known as MindLogger and the NeuroHub infrastructure that we have. Faisal Moshtaq is leading a huge study of adolescent child development of disadvantaged populations in Bradford in Northern England. And Jorge Bosch-Bayard is an expert in EEG analytics, which worked for decades with Pedro Valdez and myself. The Global Brain Consortium has a series of projects which are underway internationally. I won't go into the details here, but you can read for yourself. There are projects, both methodological, like global EEG norms, and projects at either end of the age spectrum. And as I said, Pedro right now is in Chengdu, in China, leading a conference with 31 symposia and 250 speakers. Yeah, I've never seen such a project. The online program we were all involved lectures from all these people that I've been mentioning. Please note Victor Yirza, who's one of the leading proponents of the eBrain's HIBALL network, and Michael Breakspear, who's part of the OHBM with Pedro and myself as part of the Scientific Advisory Board. Yes, I put this slide in specifically for Crystal, because she always gives me grief for having so many acronyms. So I put this slide together specifically for you. What we talked about here, I gave you a sense of where Healthy Brains for Healthy Lives fits into other networks, consortia, and platforms, and a whole bunch of friends on the right, which are part of the Global Brain Consortium, and we won't go into today. The last thing I'll mention is that HBHL has a significant commercialization and translation component, and one of the thrusts of this is the Lasso spin-off company, which is providing IT infrastructures for multi-center projects internationally. It's been adopted by the United States to support its Healthy Brains Cognitive Development Network, and will in due course be providing the same kinds of services as the NIMH Data Archive. This is something to be talked about during the coffee breaks. So with that, I'd like to thank the Crystal and the professional staff who really organize HBHL. It's a pleasure to work with people who know what they're doing and are very committed to the program. So